You're listening to episode number 2 of the Keto Diet Podcast. Hey, I'm Leanne from healthfulpursuit.com, and this is the Keto Diet Podcast, where we're busting through the restrictive mentality of a traditional ketogenic diet to uncover the life you crave. What's keto? Keto is a low-carb, high-fat diet where we're switching from a sugar-burning state to becoming fat-burning machines. The keto diet has helped me with fertility, has ended my constant weight struggles, blood sugar irregularities, imbalanced moods, and so much more. I want to share this magic with you using a realistic approach to this powerful diet. No restriction, new ways of looking at things, and positive support awaits. Let's get this party started. Hey guys, happy Sunday. Really excited for you guys to be listening to this episode. Thank you so much for jumping on board to this updated version of the podcast. We had a ton of people listening last week, so this is really awesome. Super thrilled to be sharing all of this information with you. As promised, I am going to be sharing awesome things every week, and this week I discovered a little something to do with my personal practice. As some of you know, I started meditating pretty well every day a couple of months ago. It's probably 4 months now, I think. And before that, I would always start off my day sort of like, I am strong or I am powerful. And it would kind of be my mantra for the day. But I was reading a bunch of stuff over the last little bit, and the I am, every time I say I am, it's sort of like there's this voice in the back of my head that says, well, not actually, that's not really true. So I changed the conversation to be may I be instead of I am. So if you're a mantra sort of person and you love having a mantra every day just to keep yourself focused on what's important and what you want to create during the day, I love the may I be statements so much more than I am, and you may find that you do too. So for today and for the whole week, I kind of put together like a focus of what my mantra is going to be for the week so that I can stay in that for the week. So this week it is may I be focused. Imagine that, because there's so many things going on, and I mean books and business and life and things. So focused for me is to stay on one task at a time, to be the best at that task as I can in that moment. And when I'm done that task, I move on to the next. This can be really hard for women because we can literally juggle 4,000 things at once. But when we just focus on one thing, we're so much better at that one thing and we don't get stressed. So this week it's may I be focused, love it, loving it, and maybe you will too. So what we're covering in this episode are the following items: the benefits of being fat fueled, overcoming hurdles when going keto, keto for fertility, and so much more. The show notes for today's episode can be found at healthfulpursuit.com/podcast/E2. And let's hear from one of our awesome partners before we get started. The Keto Diet Podcast is sponsored by Daily Yoga, an app that delivers 50 high-definition online yoga classes so that you can namaste in the comfort of your own home, in a hotel room, or anywhere really. With the option of professionally scheduled programs to reach your goals, whether they be overcoming insomnia, changing body composition, or calming anxiety, the multilingual classes, as well as various meditation courses, distinguish daily yoga in the app space. After your workout, you're presented with stats of your workout, time worked, intensity, calorie burn, and so much more. Download the app by going to dailyyoga.com/keto, access through the show notes, or type it in manually to your browser and use the coupon code KETO, all in lowercase, no spaces, to unlock all of the programs and courses at once for free for 7 days. Again, that's dailyyoga.com/keto and use the coupon code KETO, all lowercase, no spaces, to unlock all of the programs. So I have no things to share with you, nothing much going on, just trucking along. But if you have an idea for a podcast episode or if you want to submit praise over and above the review that you can post over by accessing healthfulpursuit.com/review, you can reach me at info@ketodietpodcast.com. And I'm going to read a review actually that was submitted a couple of days ago from O Town Mom. Love it. I had to send yet another review, Leanne. You must be an old soul because even though you're very young, you are able to connect and show so much empathy for your listeners. Your knowledge base is incredible and your experience only helps you in everything that you do because you don't ever act all high and mighty. Been there, done that. You show a deep compassion in every listener, and this, my dear, is what sets you apart from most others who do what you do. Just keep at it. I wish you all the best and truly believe you will just keep climbing. Thanks so much, O-Town Mom. I love your name. That's so great. If you want to submit a review, you can do so by going to healthfulpursuit.com/review. If you're listening to the show and you haven't submitted a review yet, it would be awesome if you did, because that just helps other people find the information that I'm sharing. And the more reviews I have, the more people that will find me and the more people that might be encouraged to eat keto and feel better. And that's exactly what we're talking about with today's guest. We are chatting with Dr. Katie Li-Broussard, who is a registered acupuncturist and doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and her practice focuses on women's health, including hormones, fertility, and internal medicine. She is also the owner, creator, and mama chef of the beautifully handcrafted line of luxury organic skincare organic rituals. I have her entire line, and it's amazing. I met her a couple of months ago, and we talk about it in the interview where she was behind the desk at my chiropractor's office and chatting about paleo and how frustrated she was with like having to create all the meals. And I slipped her my card and said, hey, you might want to check out my website. You talked about hormones and anxiety and stuff. Keto might be a really good place for you. And she checked it out and she bought the keto bundle and she's been following it for 10 weeks. And I continue to see her like every 2 weeks because I go to the chiropractor. I see her. She practices acupuncture at the same clinic. And every time I see her, she looks better and better. And she's so bright and full of energy. And I can't even describe the change that she has undergone in these last couple of months. And I wanted to have her on the podcast to chat about her experience on going keto and how she found it and tools and tips and how she really got over the hurdles that come initially when you go keto. She's coming from a dairy-free, gluten-free place when she switched over to keto. So she has some really good ideas about how to make the switch and putting yourself as top priority. And we also get into some of the acupuncture stuff because I'm not going to not ask an acupuncturist on the show about acupuncture and hormones and things. So I picked her brain about fertility because her practice primarily focuses on fertility and how she interweaves keto in her practice. Signs of hormone imbalance to do with the tongue and what to look for and testing. So it's a really, really awesome episode, whether you are new to keto and you're not quite sure about what to expect, or you're a seasoned veteran and you want to maybe get some inspiration to keep eating this way. Perhaps you're finding things a little bit challenging or there's a little hiccup somewhere and you're like, should I be doing this or should I not? So many things that Katie said, even to me, were just like, oh my goodness gracious. Thank you so much for reminding me why I do this, because I know sometimes, I feel it too. Sometimes I just I forget why I started eating this way. And Katie did such a brilliant job at describing exactly and reminding me why I do this every day and why I love fat and why I'm doing this for my body. So I'm really excited for this episode for y'all. So we're going to cut on over to the interview and I hope you love it. Hey, Katie. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Oh, good morning, Leanne. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. We had some technical issues, Skype, but we're ready to totally rock this interview. And this is our first interview on the Keto Diet Podcast. So
Oh my
no
goodness,
pressure.
so exciting. I know. This is a lot of pressure. Well, congratulations on your new podcast. This is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to chat about all things keto and keto life. And we were chatting about it earlier, I think like last week, about kind of the strategy behind it, and you got really excited. So
I know, so exciting.
That's nice to hear. So for those people that don't know you, you're a wonderful being, and I'm so excited to share you with the world. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and how you found keto?
Oh my goodness, this is a long-winded story. Let me try to make it short. Hey?
Okay, deal.
Okay, so I've been an acupuncturist for quite a while now. I've been in private practice for over 10 years. I'm a mom of two. Beautiful daughter who is 11, and I had my little guy just a couple years ago, so I've got a big gap. I also have a skincare company, as you know, so I'm super busy mom and just all over the map all the time. When it comes to kind of the keto stuff, it's very interesting. I'm kind of one of those women that I don't think I fare very well after I have babies. I'm not one of those women that can have a lot of babies and feel that I'm good afterwards. So I think after my son, my husband and I, he came as a little bit of a surprise. But after I had him, I think stress was super high. Being in the field of work that I do, you can't just kind of take a year off and pretend nothing happened and go back to work after a year. So I carried on. I was back at work when he was 5 weeks old. My skincare company, that's just pretty much me and my husband. So that carried on right away as business as usual. And I think I found myself really, really struggling about a year and a half postpartum. I found myself in a huge hot mess, ready to erupt. Stress was high. I wasn't sleeping. My little guy doesn't like to sleep. I was eating terribly, and I knew things needed to change. The anxiety was so freaking bad that I could barely leave the house on good days. So I decided to make a big change. And I decided that, in clinic, I see a lot of hormonal issues. And I thought, you know what, now's a good time to really focus in on a diet plan that can work for most people. And actually, that's when I met you. So I've been researching lots of different ways to come up with a diet plan that looks at blood sugar, that helps to regulate hormones, that just in general makes you feel good, and a very focused plan so that you don't have to worry about the things that you can't eat. You're solely focusing on the things that you can eat. So I started looking at lots of paleo stuff, lots of AIP stuff, and I was really liking it. But when I put it all together, I just don't know enough about food. And that's when I saw you at the clinic, and I was like, oh my gosh, you asked, what we were doing behind the counter there. And I was like, I'm trying to piece together all these recipes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I don't have time. I don't have time to come up with weekly meal plans for everybody that, is under my care. I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to do that? So you slid me your card and I watched your video, and then here I am 10 weeks later. I bought your book, Fat Fueled, which has changed my life. In all honesty, my husband is full keto now too. And so we just are a big fat fueled family now, really. But yeah, no, I think as soon as I began, I think, oh gosh, I didn't know what to expect. I have been in ketosis. Shamefully, I have done a little bit of dieting in the past, especially after I had my daughter. So I was very familiar with what ketosis was, but I wasn't familiar with high-fat, low-carb ketosis. And I tell you, I don't think I can ever go back.
Once you go fat, you can't go back.
You truly, seriously, I don't even think, I look at food and I look at what people are eating. And then I look at, if you're grocery shopping, I look at my cart and I'm just so proud.
Totally.
And we didn't have to do a lot of changes. I haven't eaten gluten in about 6 or 7 years now, I think. We don't do a lot of dairy at all. So it wasn't a huge change, but it's that, after reading Fat Fueled, you gave the information that was needed to make this a real practice, right? It's a lifestyle. This isn't a crash diet. This isn't, I'm going to do it for 6 weeks and then, or lose, X amount of pounds and then carry on. No, I can't imagine eating any other way. The feeling that I have being in this state is absolutely unreal. The energy is good. It's just such an even burning energy from morning to night. So when it came to kind of making changes, it wasn't huge and drastic at the beginning. I followed, I took a few of your recipes in Fat Fueled just so I could get a good idea of what was kind of going on. Day one was fantastic. It was perfect. I started out with, like the rocket fuel latte. And then I think I made your no potato salad. And I ate a lot of olives because I just didn't know really if I was getting enough fat. This is totally new to me, eating this amount of fat. So I was trying to pick and choose everything that was so super fatty because I don't think you can go wrong. By day 3, I had absolutely no anxiety. And that was the most freeing feeling. To go back to day 2, I think all of the glucose had dumped. And I was dying for sugar.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I ate that much sugar, and you hear this all the time from people. Well, I don't really eat very much wheat, or I don't eat very much sugar. You do. I think you really truly do. You don't realize how the body's fueling until you kind of dump all of your stores and you don't reintroduce it. The body kind of goes like, hello, you need sugar. So I made some fat bombs, and oh my gosh, I think it was probably the most delicious thing I'd ever eaten at that time, right? Because you have no sugar in the body. So it's like, come on, give me something. But by day 3, when I woke up, I had no panic, no feeling of panic, and everything was all of a sudden at peace. And this was the most freeing feeling for me. I thought, oh my gosh, I was doing myself such a disservice by eating what I was eating, and it wasn't even that bad. It's just that it was not the right fuel for me. I think about a week into it, the energy was unreal. I am busy, from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, and then all through the night with my little guy. I was accomplishing things in one day that would normally take me a good 3 or 4 days, cleaning the house from top to bottom, doing all of the laundry, getting myself to work, bathing, cooking, you name it. I was doing it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. Just go, 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 go. I sat down with my mom and I was chatting with her, and I said, it has been 8 days. 8 days in, I was like, I did not realize how much energy I was expending battling blood sugars. It was such a chronic battle for me. I hadn't binged ate in 8 days, which is huge because a lot of times, I work evenings, I'd come home and it was finally 5 minutes to myself, and I would eat everything I could. I would eat dinner. I would start working. I'd get my second wind, and I'd start working till all hours of the night, which, I was just killing my adrenals. I'm sure cortisol levels were right through the roof too. And you wake up so tired. So about 8 weeks in, I was like, no, I think this is the way I want to be. And I thought, okay, well, we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes for the first month. By 11 days in, my husband looked at me and was like, I need to do this too. Look
Wow.
at you. Every day I woke up, I had no pain in my body. I thought it was just sleep deprivation, to be honest. Just simply not sleeping well. I'd get up in the middle of the night to go tend to my little guy, and oh my gosh, I felt like I was like a 90-year-old lady. All of that had gone. I can get up in the middle of the night. There's no pain anywhere, no aches. My knees don't hurt. It was just fantastic. But not only that, I'd wake up every day and my body had changed, I was still carrying quite a bit of weight, which is not necessarily the primary goal of why I did this. I did it more for brain function. My brain just was not functioning to the capacity that I needed it to function. But I have to say, I think I'm 10 weeks in, and I think I've honestly lost 35 pounds.
Wow. So this is a huge change, coming from a place of, it sounded like feeling very alone in the initial, before finding keto, just frustrated and not even knowing the potential that was out there. Like, I deal with pain because I'm sleep deprived, and not even knowing how big of an impact the food that you were eating, although you were eating gluten-free and it sounds like dairy-free, it just wasn't enough for your body.
Wasn't enough. No, absolutely. No, it definitely needed huge changes. Like, I was spiraling down a road that I did not want to visit. How's that?
Yeah.
There, when you have a lot of responsibility, you don't have time to be tired. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself. And I found myself feeling sorry for myself all the time. It was just awful. It was a real eye-opener when I changed and how much I was actually struggling. Like, I kind of look back, and I know I'm only, a couple months and a bit in, but I look back and I'm like, I never want to go back to that place of sheer exhaustion. Now I get up, I do my thing all day, and then I have to go to bed at like 10. Like, there's no staying up late because my day was so full. And the body needs to repair itself, right? I've been so busy throughout the day that you don't get that second wind. The body actually needs to simply relax and chill out.
Totally.
Turn off.
The podcast is sponsored by Paleo Valley 100% grass-fed beef sticks, my new favorite gut-friendly clean protein snack. There are tons of new snack options on the market today, but nothing quite like Paleo Valley's grass-fed beef sticks. They are made from 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef, which is really rare. Contains all organic spices, are all free of dyes, and are also carb-free, GMO-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and contain 0 grams of sugar. But the big reason these beef sticks make me do the happy dance is that they're fermented. Yes, just like fermented vegetables. As a result, each beef stick contains 1 billion naturally occurring gut-healing probiotics. They're super convenient, delicious, and great for your gut, so don't miss out. Exclusive to our listeners, Paleo Valley is providing 20% off all orders for a very limited time. You'll also be given first dibs on their brand new, insanely delicious garlic summer sausage and summer sausage flavors, just like healthy mini hickory smoked sausages. Get your fermented 100% grass-fed beef sticks for 20% off by going to paleovalley.com/keto. Load up your cart and the discount will be automatically applied. Again, that's paleovalley.com/keto. And it's, you mentioned something about not having the time to do much of anything, like your go, go, go. How did you put yourself as a first priority? Like, that's a huge challenge, I know, for moms, or just, I'm not a mom, and my coach always has to say, like, hey, Leanne, you're not putting yourself as a first priority. You need to do that. I'm sure you had to overcome some hurdles when I gave you my card and I was like, you might want to check this out. I knew you were on the path to kind of figuring things out, but was there an aha moment or something that sparked in you where you're like, okay, this has got to change, and these are the steps or motivation that's going to push me through this awkward stage of change?
Absolutely. I think I'm familiar with the ketogenic diet in a very different perspective. The first time I heard about it, I was in university. I had watched a presentation by a professor who was working on a very specific neurotransmitter in epilepsy. And that was the first time I had heard the term ketogenic diet. And so essentially what they were doing to the animals, I know this sounds really bad, but my undergrad was in neuroscience. I was one of the first students that went through the Canadian Centre for Behavioral Neuroscience in university. And I found it very fascinating. Their type of ketogenic diet, for the animals was essentially, water fasting and this kind of thing. But the changes that were seen in the brain and the condition were unreal. Now, does that have anything to do with human food or how we live on an everyday basis? Absolutely not. But when you passed me your card, and I think I have to think about this. Which video did I watch first? I think it was on your website. It would have been Reasons to Go Keto. And the floodgates opened, and I was like, oh my gosh, this woman has brought this information into a setting that you can actually bring into your home. And I was like, I can do this. There's no bars, there's no injections, there's no, this is real food and really good food. I'm going to go off on a side tangent here, but I remember sitting down with my husband once again when he kind of decided that he was going to do this. And I said, I don't think, in all honesty, I have ever eaten this many nutrients in such a short period in my whole entire life. Fat is where it's at. And I know this with skincare, right? To nourish the skin, you don't need all these fancy fillers. What you need is the real deal, the concentrated oils, the unrefined, cold pressed goodness for the skin. And here I am. I'm like, bring it on. I'm going to eat all of this, right? The nutrients. And I feel like after watching that video and the first day that I did it, I kept on thinking, this is so cool. I know the effects that it has on the brain. I'm going to do this myself. And it was so empowering, just from the information that you've allowed all of us to share.
Yeah, that's really exciting and such a cool approach too, in that all it took was for you just I know this and I can do this. And
absolutely,
really, I know that and I have done many a diet and trickled in a lot of different things and stuff. With those, it's always a battle, and it's always just a fight to go the next day, and you actually are really miserable. But I know
absolutely.
From my personal experience, it's it's almost like you feel like a rebel when you're adding, even last night, I put a bunch of duck fat in a pan, and there was this moment of still to this day, after 2.5 years, maybe Leanne, that's too much fat, and oh yeah, no, this is good. No, this is good. And you feel like a rebel, putting all that duck fat in a pan. You're like, ha ha ha, because it's so fulfilling and it makes you feel good, right away. So
absolutely,
the motivation is easy.
I know there was something you had said the day that you passed me the card. I said, well, what's keto? And you're like, it's kind of one step up from paleo. Instead of reaching for sweet potato, you would grab a spoon of nut butter or something. And I thought, what the heck, really?
Who is this woman?
No, I just thought, really. And then the other day, here I am, and I kid you not, you can kind of feel yourself I'm starting to really decipher whether or not I need or really understand my body when it needs some more salt water, or if I actually need to feed it something. So the other day, I just kind of get a little bit low, nothing like a glucose crash by no means, but you just kind of feel just the energy is starting to waver. And here I feed my dog coconut oil. And I was like, I'm just going to take a scoop of that. And oh my gosh, within 2 minutes, I was back in the race. There was no lag time. And I was like, this is what she means.
Yes.
It's just unreal. There's no ups and downs. And I think for a lot of people, my patients included, you can see it in people, whether or not you're at the grocery store or out walking, you can see the ups and downs that people have with blood sugar. And if you only could understand that when you actually turn your body into fueling primarily on fat, the reaction that you have is just so steady and so clean, right? The fuel is just so clean. There's no huge, drastic, extreme, really high energy to really low energy. You're just sailing right through the middle. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
I love that analogy of just sailing, because that's really what it feels like. You're just sailing through. And for somebody in your practice as a doctor of acupuncture, I'm sure you meet a lot of clients in your practice. Like you said, you hustle all day. Every time I see you, you're up and about and taking in a new client. I'm sure you meet with women and men who the keto diet would be good for. How do you approach that now that you're keto and you know the effects, and you meet a client and you're like, oh my gosh, you're struggling with this. If you could just try keto. How do you go about that? And are there objections and hurdles that you have to jump through as a practitioner?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think even before I was keto, there's, the talk about diet is usually a very sensitive one for most people, unless they're absolutely desperate for change. When you come in for a visit, whether it's hormonal issues, fertility, pain, what have you, you come in and I'll take your pulse and I'll take a look at your tongue, probably take a look at your ears, your hands, talk through what's kind of been going on and that kind of thing. And you can, whether or not I feel a lot of inflammation or just huge hormonal imbalances, it can be very well seen and very, very clear to me what's going on. So lots of times, I always recommend kind of getting rid of the foods that cause a lot of inflammation. And and the biggest ones, you've got sugar, wheat, and dairy. And they kind of look at me and they just kind of get that glazed over look like, I'm not so sure that I'm really game for that. But I mean, acupuncture is great. I mean, it's definitely a very, very powerful medicine, and it can definitely deal with a lot of things. But I always really like to give a lot of education to my patients. Whether or not you take the information and put it to good use is totally up to you. But I feel as a practitioner, when you come to see somebody like me, you're obviously looking for something, and I'll always give you the information. I'm not so much of a when it comes to, did you eliminate those things? The people that do eliminate it, we have great conversations in subsequent visits, but I think a lot of people get lost. The second you take away those, even just those 3 items, they feel very sad.
Yeah, because it's so tied to emotion.
I know, yeah. Absolutely. It always kills me. Let's say you take your dog or your cat to the vet and they've, let's say, got a rash or they've got upset stomach or what have you, and the vet says, you know what? You got to get rid of all the fillers in the food. Go get a better food and let's see how it goes, right? And so, you pop into your car and where do you go? What's the first stop you make? The pet food store to get new food.
You bet.
Right? Just gone. Like, you don't need corn in your food? Gone. We can pick one, right? And you go home and you be on your way. It's not like that for us humans. I think we're so emotionally tied to our food. And I think a lot of people don't actually realize that what we eat has an impact on our whole body. What we eat also affects our mood. What we eat can affect those anxiety levels. What we eat can be used to energize the body, but it can also be used to depress the body in some ways as well. That's another reason why I absolutely love this approach, the keto approach to eating. It's the first time I've actually listened to kind of medical practitioners. I've listened to lots of videos and I've read lots of various studies on this. And it's actually the first time that I've seen kind of the Western medical world look at the body as a whole. And, looking at, yes, you eat this, and then the sequence of events affects more than one system of the body. And it's such a beautiful thing because it's so true. When you clean up your diet, whether or not you're paleo or you've gone and you've eliminated all the things that, have come up on a food sensitivity test with a naturopath, you start feeling better. And that's when you see the power of food. But when you are constantly bombarded by foods that are causing inflammation or causing digestive upset or causing headaches or, allergies or, things like this, you never know. You can't feel what the body's actually feeling like when you're bombarded by so many things that you shouldn't be eating.
That's really interesting. I'd never actually thought about keto as a whole. Like, I know I approach keto as a holistic approach, and that's really been my thing. But it's really the first time that a diet in, our culture is looked at as a holistic approach completely. From what your brain does and what your emotions are doing and what your body is doing, your blood sugar, like there's so many pieces to it. Whereas, interesting. Wow. Mind blown on that one for sure. You mentioned in your practice that there are certain signs that you look for hormone imbalance. And I'd love to just pick your brain on that because I know a lot of women listening specifically. We've spoken about thyroid tongue in the past and what that looks like. And are there certain signs that you look for that maybe point to, your adrenal dysfunction or thyroid irregularities?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody's so very different. And some signs can be, some signs on the tongue can be very different on a whole variety of people. That's what I love about Chinese medicine, is it takes you as the individual and puts the whole picture together. But when you and Amber were talking about, the scalloped edges and this kind of thing, this is definitely related to, the spleen, which has a huge function in digestive function of the whole body. The tongue is a true reflection of everything that's going on inside. So you can see the energetics of the heart, of the kidneys. The kidneys are really, really important in Chinese medicine. This is kind of the root of the qi that we've been born with. And you can definitely see that kind of on the areas of the back of the tongue. The tongue coating says a lot too. I mean, there's so much about the tongue that I'm not sure if we have enough time to really cover everything, but you definitely can see, without a doubt, if you come to see an acupuncturist, an experienced one, you can see whether or not there's, adrenal fatigue. These are more terms that you use kind of in naturopathic medicine, but you can definitely see them on the tongue and equate them to Chinese medicine. The front of the tongue, if it's nice and red and maybe it's kind of pointed, that, definitely can indicate that the heart is having a hard time, in terms of the relationship to all of the organs. I work, most people have some liver issues that are going on that can be seen. I usually like to take the pulse for that one. That gives me a better idea of kind of what's going on. But when hormones are not in balance, there's a whole slew of symptoms. And I mean, I think every woman kind of knows when they're hormonal, but you can definitely see the impact that it has on the tongue and the pulse for sure. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, totally. I know that my tongue changes from day to day. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting to monitor it. And I know, I've spoken about this before, of just if my tongue has those serrated edges on the side, or it feels too big for my mouth, I know that I need to slow down. That's a good indication that my thyroid is Leanne, stop.
Absolutely. It's also a good time to come see your acupuncturist.
Right? Totally.
No, it does. The tongue changes. The tongue coating especially changes a lot. I was very fortunate early on in my career. I worked with a very renowned acupuncturist that dealt with complex case and cancer. So I was very fortunate to see a lot of people. I learned so much. It was such an invaluable experience. I worked with him for 3 years, and so you can only imagine how many people I was able to assist him with. And to see the tongue when it's actually sick, when somebody's very, very ill or they've undergone radiation or chemotherapy, to actually see significant changes on the tongue and what that looks like. So most of us, I think, have pretty regular, normal-ish looking tongues, but it's always nice to know what the tongue looks like when the body is really struggling and battling a serious disease. But the tongue changes. The tongue coating changes often. When you get sick, lots of times the tongue coating will get quite thick. If you happen to have an infection and you end up on antibiotics, you can see how much that just destroys the tongue coating. That's a really good indication that, you have to work on kind of building the flora back up in the gut. But the tongue definitely changes. And it's good that you're in tune with that, because that also is something that I find with keto in general. When people are very in tune with what they're eating, they're also very in tune with their body. And that's another reason why I absolutely love this. I can make small changes to the diet, and all of a sudden you feel the difference, within a day, and maybe sometimes longer for some people, but I know for myself, if I don't eat enough fat, the next day, that's all I need to eat.
Totally.
I don't, but I mean, you can feel the things that you can actually feel what's going on when something was absolutely delicious, and not just, flavorful delicious, but like delicious for the body. That's all you want to eat for a little bit, like, and I know my husband, we bought some steak the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I just need to eat this for a few meals. So that's what I did.
Yes, totally. I go through those phases too, where it's like, that felt really good. I feel really good. I'm just going to have the same thing for lunch.
Absolutely. And there's no shame. I mean, it tastes so good, right? But it feels so good. And that's so important. So when you are really in tune with your body, it is such it's your acupuncturist dream come true when you can talk with somebody that actually feels what's going on.
Oh, right.
I mean, I can tell a lot of things, but what's most important is how my patient feels. What are the things that they're doing? I can guide you and bring you to that point where you can start feeling your body and understanding what's going on. And then we can have really good conversations. And that's always a goal of mine, is to really teach yourself about yourself, and how to trust yourself, because essentially when it all boils down, the only person that knows yourself the best is you. Right. And so I think that, this type of eating style really allows you and empowers you to understand yourself and to actually feel what you're doing.
Yes. Yes. 100 times. Yes. I totally agree with you. Vital Proteins is a partner of the Keto Diet Podcast, and we all know how much I'm obsessed with them. Why? Because their beef gelatin and collagen peptides are so versatile, encourage healing, and are very easy to incorporate. If you have digestive imbalances, are wanting to grow strong hair or nails, or are looking for a health-promoting protein powder, look no further than Vital Proteins. Their beef gelatin is great added to soups, stews, and casseroles, and their collagen peptides can be used just like you would use protein powder. Now that the weather is changing, I like to add a couple of scoops of gelatin to my casseroles, stews, and my personal favorite, beef stroganoff. Receive 10% off plus free shipping in the US when you use the code VPHP10 at checkout at vitalproteins.com. As a woman who's practicing keto and is also an acupuncturist, I know that we've had this conversation offline, but do you feel like there is information missing in the keto space for women? And what do you feel like, if yes, what do you feel is missing, and what would you like to see in the space for women on keto?
My goodness, that's kind of a loaded question.
I know.
I think you've done such an incredible job of laying this out and talking about hormones and talking about things and talking about it in a way that people are able to relate to it. I think in general, a lot of women, first off, have a lot of hormonal issues.
Yeah.
I think we see this truly exemplified by, fertility issues. I do see a lot of these type of conditions in the clinic, and it's really challenging. You go to the doctor, your medical practitioner, and, let's say they say to you, you've got PCOS, right? Here's a little bit of metformin, and then you're just kind of left on your own, and you don't really understand what's going on, or perhaps you have your blood taken and your thyroid function is okay, in their standards, right? I'm kind of thinking that, the thyroid testing that we do, I think if you have two legs and a heartbeat, I think that that everybody falls into that category.
Yes.
But I mean, whatever it is, what it is, I think people are getting smarter about their health and really kind of embracing holistic medicine to understand themselves a little bit more. I mean, it doesn't take brain science to know that you just don't feel well.
Yeah. Right.
And so when you do go to the doctor and you find that, everything's normal, it's like you kind of go home quite deflated, I think. You kind of wish that there was at least something there so that it's not just in your head, right? But hormonal issues are a huge one. And I think you've done an incredible job at really opening up the can of worms and encouraging women to learn about themselves. And, if you need to go see a naturopath or an acupuncturist or somebody that, works in functional medicine, somebody to actually be able to look at those results and perceive them in a different way, right?
Yeah, totally. So it sounds like I know that I struggled with that as well when I had amenorrhea for 8 years. Absolutely. All the doctors were like, well, do you want to get pregnant? And I was like, no. They're like, okay, well, what's the problem? Like, are you kidding me right now? And it can be so frustrating because, like you said, something is wrong, and it's so deflating when you go to these doctors. And, there are doctors out there that are fabulous, and I managed to find a couple. But it can be really frustrating as somebody who knows that there's something wrong. And then a doctor's always saying, like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, to the point where you're like, okay, well, I mean, I'm a busy lady. I have other things to do. If the doctor says I'm fine, I'm fine. But then you continue to deal with issues. So it sounds like having that support and understanding within the keto space is helpful, as well as hormone support and information. Do you have, like, as somebody who's newer in the keto space, are there certain resources that you love in addition to mine? Like, are there certain books that you read that were helpful, or videos that you watched and you remember some people that were pretty awesome?
In terms of hormones?
Hormones, keto, anything you got.
I think you're the shining star on that one.
Oh, geez, thanks.
No, really, I am very fascinated. I think I've mentioned this before to you. It really fascinates me, the brain and fueling on ketones.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of videos. I think I just watched one not too long ago by, oh gosh, you probably know him too, Tom Seyfried.
Seyfried, yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, like watching his video, I think that was the best entertainment this cookie's come by for a long time. And I know it's so geeky, but I couldn't help myself. It was just so fascinating, the studies that he has focused on when it comes to, specific brain tumors and the ketogenic diet. And it was just using, big words, and I was just loving life. And my husband looks at me, he's like, what are you watching? And I'm like, I'm geeking out to, brain science. It's so sexy, I know. But no, when it comes to hormonal issues, I really truly think that you've at least given women or empowered them to look a little bit deeper. It's not just about what the blood work says. It's not just about, whether or not you're having fertility issues. It's not just about that. It's so much more. I know a few of my patients right now, I've introduced this diet to. And like I said, Leanne, I see a lot of PCOS in clinic. It's actually, I don't know if it's necessarily just increased testing, or we're starting to really see the effects of infertility. Like, I don't really know why this is starting to become such a huge issue amongst women. But either way, acupuncture is fantastic to deal with it. But diet is, 85% of it, right? Like, you need to go home and you need to make some serious changes. We need to regulate that insulin levels, and we need to address, why the body's not responding to the, certain hormones in the body, to have you start ovulating, to have you start menstruating regularly. I think it's so important. Women's health is definitely, or I should say the menstrual cycle is really truly a reflection of women's health in Chinese medicine. And it can shed so much insight as to what's going on in the body. And in your case, when you weren't having a period, that's a big problem. Like,
Huge.
It's not, it's not a deathly problem. Like, it's not a terminal problem, but it's an indication that the body's not functioning properly. Like, if you were, your body fat was really, really low, and you were training, I don't know, for, Olympic teams, or, what have you, maybe you might see, not getting a period, just because the body's under a different type of stress. But if you're kind of going on your way, just kind of normally, moderate exercise and eating good and what have you, it's a really good indication if menstrual cycle isn't regular, that there's something else kind of going on in your body, right? So yeah, I think that you've done an incredible job to even shed light that there is help out there that women can seek and get the answers that they need, or get a good idea of what's going on so that they can help themselves.
Totally. And I think, like in my case, I wasn't definitely not training for the Olympics, but I was working out too much. I wasn't eating enough. I was obsessing about food. I wasn't keto. So there was like multiple things. I restricted my food, which was a huge, huge problem. And I agree with you that the change, and for me, my body fat percentage was too low for my body, even though when you looked at me, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a healthy girl, like she looks great. But I actually had to gain weight in order to get it back. And
yeah,
my
and
menstruation, I'm sure you see that.
I see that a lot too. Some women come in that, they've been trying to, get pregnant for a really long time. And it's like, you know what? You need to eat a little bit.
more
and it's okay. And it's okay, and the reverse is the same too. When insulin levels are really high and blood sugars aren't balanced, and there's maybe some tendency of PCOS kind of symptoms sneaking in there and you haven't been diagnosed with it, even if you just simply regulate blood sugars, the body oftentimes will start ovulating.
Totally.
And menstruation, starts coming regularly, and, you're not bleeding for days on end, or no period for, 40 or 60 days, right?
Or oodles of pain like and all the stuff that you deal with. It should be pretty even. Do you have other tips, like in the keto space for fertility for women? Like we talked about eating enough, regulating your insulin. Is there anything else that is just like, you need to do this because it would help immensely for fertility? You know what? I
always say see an acupuncturist for fertility, for sure. I think if you've got your diet down, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are obviously, in that space or in that frame of mind, acupuncture is beautiful to optimize ovulatory function, to, build that lining up nice and thick so that if conception does occur, there's really nice place for implantation, and to strengthen the body as a whole, reduce stress. I mean, there's lots of ways to kind of reduce, calm that nervous system so that, if things start happening and pregnancy happens, like the body's in a good place going into it, right? If you have digestive issues, your acupuncturist needs to work on those. If fertility is your goal, then we have to take away any burden that's kind of going on elsewhere so that the body can focus on getting pregnant, right?
Right, totally.
I think too, a lot of women, especially these days, are fighting the clock. And that's a hard one. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress. And now with the options of, seeking out fertility protocols at the fertility clinic, it's opened up a can of worms for a lot of women that not only are you trying to have a baby, or you've been, trying for many, many years, now you're starting to make huge financial investments into trying to conceive. And so there's so much stress and so much pressure that seeing your acupuncturist for some, good quality acupuncture to calm that nervous system down is a blessing, is very welcomed. It's another person on your team, right, that is there to support you through, whatever, whether or not it's you're naturally trying or you're going through, fertility treatments at the fertility center. It's just one more person on your team that's there to give you different perspectives, that's there to help your body undergo all of these fertility treatments, because they're not easy. I mean, I know what my hormones feel like on, regular basis. Mine are pretty okay, especially now that I'm keto. But after I had my son, oh my gosh, like you want to talk about the power of hormones. I mean, postpartum hormones, I think, are just a rude awakening to, how powerful hormones can be. But when you go through fertility treatments, you're getting a lot of hormonal treatment or hormonal injections. You can be taking all sorts of different drugs to alter the hormone system. It's really I think a lot of women find that they start struggling, especially if it's not the first round, but the second or third rounds of various hormonal treatment. They have a lot of side effects that affect not just the physical being, but the emotional well-being too.
That's so fascinating. Well, wow. We shared so much information. I feel like if people are concerned or a little bit scared about going keto, your experience on keto, just like 100% bang on. That's what I hear all the time. And you shared it so beautifully, and, you know, making yourself a priority and just everything to do with fertility. Like, this was great. This was so great. I'm so happy that you came on the show and shared your brilliance with everyone. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your amazing organic skincare collection? I love it. Like, guys, seriously, it's like we were talking about before the call, the lip stuff that you make is like smooth and good, and it soaks in, and it's not chalky, and it's not pasty. It's just like perfect, and it's still on my lips, but it's just like smooth and nice.
I'm so glad you liked it. It's something I've been doing for a while. I think, I've been doing this since about 2006. So I think it's 10 years now I've had this company.
Wow.
It started off really small. I used to mix things up for my patients because I saw a lot of skin. Like, a lot of times, you know, people come in and they've got skin conditions. And the skin, of course, again, is a good reflection of kind of what's going on inside. But lots of times you need something topical. And you need something that's full of nutrients, that hasn't been refined, that doesn't have a lot of, you know, chemical fillers in it, and, you know, that kind of thing. And so Born was this line of skincare. And so we've been doing this for quite a while. We have, you know, a beautiful face line, a body line, and it does very well. We're online. It's organicrituals.com. You can find us online. You can also find us at a lot of the Nutter stores in Alberta, a few of the wellness clinics in town here, and in Calgary carry it as well. I also do a little bit of private labeling for a laser studio that absolutely adores our line. And even though she has very, very fancy products and what have you, she still, when it comes to healing the skin, will always turn to a more natural product, just because you can see such dramatic results in a very little amount of time. Again, it's like food, right? Like, you can heal the body with a lot of fat very quickly. I think a lot faster many times than a synthetic drug or some kind of chemical compound, right?
Yes, totally. And something that you said is like, I've been putting fat in my products for years. Why didn't I think about this for my body?
I know. Oh my gosh, it's so true. I was thinking, as I'm watching your videos for the first time, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've met my match. It's a match made in heaven. It's a lady that loves fat as much as I do.
Totally. Oh, that's so great. So definitely check out Organic Rituals. I put on the body lotion today, and it just soaks. It's just perfect. Like, it's bang on. So you totally crushed it. I'm so excited to have you as the first guest on the podcast, and we'll include everything in the show notes for today's episode, which you can find at healthfulpursuit.com/podcast/E2. And we will see you guys next week. And that does it for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. Thanks for listening in. You can follow me on Instagram by searching Healthful Pursuit, where you'll find daily keto eats and other fun things. And check out all of my keto supportive programs, bundles, guides, and other cool things over at healthfulpursuit.com/shop. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.